Hello and welcome to Climate Check with me, Mwiikisa. Now today we look back at the year 2024 and we zero in on the impact of the El Nino-induced drought Zambia and the rest of the region suffered. This show is brought to you courtesy HIVO's Southern Africa and its alliance partners on the VCA project. This is Climate Check. We take a short break. Now imagine if trees could provide Wi-Fi, just how many trees you would plant? Well, they provide oxygen. We definitely cannot do without it. Destruction of nature such as forests has led to irreversible climatic changes to our world. Join me as I talk to policy formulators, change makers and climate change interest groups on Climate Check, weekly on this channel. Now you are the solution to climate change. Now, Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema declared the country's drought a national disaster and emergency on Thursday, 29th February 2024. He said the drought had devastated food production and electricity generation as the nation battled to recover from a recent deadly cholera outbreak. Now, in the agriculture sector, the drought impacted Zambia's agriculture sector in that it caused crop losses, livestock deaths, and food shortages. Now, on crop losses, the 2023-2024 drought season resulted in a significant crop loss, including over 900,000 hectares of maize that was lost, as well as affecting over 1 million farmers, and thereby plunging the country into widespread food insecurity. Now, the drought also worsened poverty by driving up food prices and limiting food access. This also led to increased livestock deaths, low levels of water in dams and reservoirs, and it also affected hydro generation and led to power outages. Beyond Zambia, about 68 million people in Southern Africa suffered the effects of an El Nino-induced drought, which wiped out crops across the region. And of course, on the program today, we will look back at the lessons learned from the drought that the country suffered in 2024. And what's the plan for this new year, 2025? Now, join me in welcoming my guest, who is the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, Dr. Doughty Chibamba. Thank you so much, sir, for making time, and a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you for having me. So, good evening, viewers.
Now, I know that the drought period hit your ministry very hard, to run around, to coordinate and ensure that we still create resilience around that. How would you rate that drought season as a ministry?
Thank you for that question. Indeed, 2024 was a very challenging year for us. We faced one of the most punishing droughts. It's been the worst drought in 40 years. And us as a ministry that is responsible for weather forecasting and related activities, it was quite a very challenging time because the pressure was on us to find ways and means of trying to adapt to the climate change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as a ministry, I know that you have different blueprints regards how, as a country, we must respond, we must adapt, we must align our development in that we are still sustainable as a country. We have the National Adaptation Plan, we have the NDC implementation, we also have the Green Growth Strategy. These documents have been launched by your ministry. I'm not sure if we're seeing much implementation on the ground.
Yeah, that's true. We are the ministry responsible for coordinating climate change mitigation and adaptation. We play a coordinational role with the full understanding that climate mitigation and adaptation will not happen only in the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment. It will have to happen across the sectors, in agriculture, in water, in livestock, in health, in local government. So yes, we develop the blueprints. Now, the good thing about these blueprints, we do not develop them alone.
Okay.
We work with the sector ministries to develop the National Adaptation Plan, to develop the National Determined Contribution for Zambia, to develop the Green Growth Strategy. Because we already have a working platform where we can collaborate, we can coordinate in that manner. And this is the environmental sustainability cluster in the 8th National Development Plan. So in terms of developing the documents, we work with experts from all the sector ministries. So there's that ownership from the word go. But what we've learned from this punishing drought is that we need to be more aggressive in ensuring that the documents that we develop are actually implemented. And not only implemented, but they must be implemented at scale. This is why, going forward, we are devising measures to ensure that every director, in terms of developing their work plan for the year, they are supposed to indicate exactly how they are putting the adaptation programs in the NAP, in the NDC implementation framework, in the green growth strategy, into their daily activities at the directorate in the ministry. This simply means that we have to be able now to track clearly how much are we implementing using the national budget. But beyond the national budget, how much are we implementing using the various projects that we are implementing in the ministries? In all these ministries, there are multi-million-dollar projects that we are implementing. For example, in green economy, we have the Eastern Province Jurisdictional Project, we have the Tralad project, and we have several new projects that are coming on board.
Now, having picked lessons from the drought that happened to us last year, how much coordination or how much engagement is there between your ministry and other ministries in this country to ensure that they are doing the right thing? They are aligning with these documents, which, by the way, are meant for the good of the country.
There's very strong coordination. This drought has been the worst, and almost throughout 2024, we were in the National Disaster Management Technical Committee meetings. Again, where we have everybody there. Local government, water, Ministry of Health. So in terms of coordination, there's no problem there. We are already working together at scale, trying to address this elephant in the room. In any case, even when we do the weather forecasts, when it comes to anticipating the impacts in each sector, it is not only the Ministry of Green Economy that does that. We bring all our partners from health, from agriculture, from water, from DMMU. So that working platform is already there, and that's a very big advantage for us. So what we are going to do now is to increase the emphasis of looking at these documents line by line and how we are implementing those adaptation activities at scale. The whole idea now is to try and implement these adaptation activities at scale. Whether or not we have adequate rainfall, we should be able to ensure that these adaptation activities are happening throughout all the time, so that we are ready for any eventuality.
Now, PS, let me take you back to COP29, where Zambia participated fresh from dealing with the drought, and everybody is expecting that, okay, this is our chance to make a case because we have tangible evidence on the table of what we're dealing with. Apart from the unsatisfactory outcome for the Global South, the $300 billion pledge for up to 2035, how did you as a country leverage the fact that you're dealing with the drought, and beyond what is given for the Global South, Zambia gets something out of it to be able to ride on? What are some of the key positives that you picked as a country?
Yes, indeed. Of course, the so-called financial outcome was very disappointing. To give us $300 billion, and those are just pledges anyway, against a realistic target of $1.3 trillion, which was based on science, based on empirical evidence. So $300 billion is a drop in the ocean. In any case, the adaptation gap, adaptation only, is $387 billion. Now, you're talking about $300 billion for adaptation, for loss and damage, for mitigation. So for me, on the financial side, the COP was a complete failure. On the bilateral side, as you witnessed yourself, and thanks a lot for covering those events, we signed those bilateral agreements. I think for us, those bilateral agreements are going to be a game changer going forward. Why? Because those bilateral agreements we signed with Sweden, Norway, and Singapore, the MOU with Singapore, those are focusing on renewable energy.
Okay.
And this is our biggest problem that we have at the moment. So what is going to happen now is we are going to broaden our portfolio in carbon trading, away from focusing on nature-based projects to include renewable energy projects, especially solar, and clean cooking alternatives. So what that means is that those bilateral support will come with the financing, basically a de-risking mechanism, where if ZESCO signs a power purchase agreement with a private sector player, which is deemed not to be viable, for example, maybe because the tariff is low. For example, maybe they agree for a tariff of 8 cents per kilowatt hour. So if they go to look for money at the bank, the funder will say 8 cents per kilowatt hour is not viable to make profit out of that. So what those bilateral agreements we signed mean is that, especially the one with Norway.
Yes.
If 8 kilowatt hour is not viable, then the question will be, what is the viable rate? So if, say, for example, the viable rate is 14 kilowatt hour, to make this investment viable, then Norway will come and cover that gap. So 8 kilowatt hour to 14, there's a gap of 6 cents.
Yes.
So Norway will cover that 6 cent gap.
Okay.
And because Norway, Sweden, Singapore are rated AAA, they are the best players you can find in N-carbon projects. So once ZESCO and this private sector person go to the bank to say that that deficit of 6 cents is going to be covered by Norway, just the mention of Norway, that transaction becomes immediately viable.
Okay.
Because the funder knows that if it is Norway, then that thing, there is no room for failure. So for us, that is the biggest outcome we came with from COP, that we are going to see an increased interest in investing in renewable energy, especially solar and clean cooking alternatives. So for us, that was the biggest achievement from that COP. The overall politics of it was not good enough, but on our side, because already, I mean, we have already seen interest coming from as far as South Korea, from South Africa. The recent project application reviews we did, we had applications, a few applications from South Korea and a few applications from South Africa. And the reason why they are coming is because of the nature of the players we are dealing with, Norway, Singapore, and Sweden. AAA rated. If you're talking of carbon trading, there's nobody else who can do better than them. So if we are working with them, every prospective investor will have confidence that if I go to Zambia and invest, then my project is likely to succeed.
Is there room for Zambians to participate in this investment?
Plenty of room.
Is the environment enabling?
Plenty of room. You know, the thing which makes it difficult for private players in Zambia to succeed in this environment, it is a risk factor. It's very risky to invest in our context. So now, that de-risking element which Norway is coming with, it clears the room for Zambian players to enter into that space. This financing is going to be accessed by both foreign and local investors. There's even room for both of these investors to work in joint ventures and then join hands and do that. Coming to agriculture, so again, like I explained earlier on, when we issue the weather forecast, the specific ways in which that weather forecast is going to affect the agriculture sector, that agricultural bulletin advisory comes from the input from our colleagues at agriculture. So it's very clear now that we'll have to move away from rain-fed agriculture.
Yes.
We have to do a lot of irrigation, and for us to do a lot of irrigation, of course, we need to do water harvesting. We need dams, as many as we can manage. We need smart irrigation, using drip irrigation so that we don't waste a lot of water, given that the water now is will become more and more scarce. But what we have done now is to work even much closely with the Ministry of Agriculture.
Okay.
What we are doing now also to enhance our weather observation equipment that we have on the ground, we have even developed a form where right now every camp officer has to record the rainfall amounts that is happening there, the kind of soil moisture that they are experiencing there, the type of crops, and even the state of the crops. Are they being attacked by armyworms? Are the crops stressed? So we are coming to work more closely with the Ministry of Agriculture. And what we have seen, what we have said going forward, what you're going to see, normally you see my Director of Met Konde coming to give a weather forecast.
Yes.
So what we're going to be doing now, it will have to be Met and Agriculture jointly.
Okay.
When the Director of Met explains the issues around the weather forecast, what are the implications for that weather
on the agriculture
sector? Last week or the day before yesterday, we had a meeting at the Disaster Mitigation and Unit.
Yes.
This was a technical meeting for National Disaster Technical Team. So what we resolved there was, when you see our weather director, you put a map there of where the rain is going to happen, how much rain. So what we resolved from that meeting is for agriculture to bring the crop map to overlay on this weather map.
Okay.
So that when they are giving advisories to the farmers, it's exactly based on the information that we have on the weather map. So that way then the weather advisory, the agricultural advisory will become more meaningful to the local farmer. Because, for example, our Met people would tell us where the moisture stress is, where excess moisture is. So when we overlay that with the fields map, for example, for agriculture, then we are better able to give more robust advisories to the farmers.
Another sector that was affected by the drought, PS, is the tourism sector. And there has been even cases of wildlife stress, lack of water, lack of food, and also even human-wildlife conflicts, especially in Southern Province and Livingstone in particular, because you have these animals going to where people live to look for water and food. How are you working with the Ministry of Tourism to try and pull them into the National Adaptation Plan, to pull them into the Green Growth Strategy and the NDC?
So again, like I explained earlier on, we are already working very closely with the Ministry of Tourism.
Okay.
First of all, the Ministry of Tourism are a member of the Environmental Sustainability Cluster of the 8th National Development Plan, which is chaired by the Ministry of Green Economy and the Environment.
Okay.
We are implementing the Twilight Project in Luapula, Mwiikisa, and Northern Province. You'll be very surprised to see the component in that project, which is sitting in the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, which is going to Ministry of Tourism. We have built houses in Lavush, Manda, we have done roads, we have bought them vehicles for Liwa National Park. Even now, that's the kind of working relationship that is existing between us and tourism. You go to the Eastern Province Jurisdictional Project. There again, you'll be amazed. We've built houses for their officers in the game management areas.
Okay.
We have done roads, we've bought them vehicles. That's how closely we work together.
Okay.
Right now, the Ministry of Tourism is starting the Great Tourism Development Project. So again there, go and look in that and see how big the budget is that has been given to us as green economy to implement. So we are working very closely, but just suffice to agree with you that, when you are facing such a punishing drought, it brings a lot of stress on the animals.
Yes.
To the point that, animals have migratory routes. All things being equal, animals like elephants, there's a particular path that they are going to pass through. It could be for a century, they don't change.
Okay.
But when they are under stress, they don't have water, there's not enough food in the park there.
Yes.
So that's when now you see these elephants going everywhere, causing a lot of havoc. They are looking for anything they can find, whether they are vegetables, including millimil. I mean, there was a sad case in Mukun village, was it last week, where the elephant went and demolished a house just to get a bag of millimil from there. So inevitably, when you are facing such a punishing drought, animals become more aggressive and they will do very unusual things. They'll pass in places where they would not normally pass, simply because they are looking for food, they are looking for water.
Okay.
So it becomes a very, very big problem.
What's the outlook for 2025 for the ministry?
2025, of course, we have to be positive. We've come out of a very punishing drought.
We hope so.
Yes.
Everybody's saying, okay, we're listening to the MITS updates. We pray it's as accurate as we pray it is.
Yes, so the past few
But we
days,
believe the MITS.
The past few days, my director mate and myself have been sleeping peacefully.
Yes,
and
clearly.
We are confident that we'll continue sleeping peacefully, because these rains will hold.
Mm-hmm.
So going forward, like I told you, we need to demonstrate that we are implementing especially adaptation programs deliberately and at scale.
Mm-hmm.
So going forward, those documents that we have developed, we want to make sure that each line by line, we are putting those activities in the funding from the national budget.
Okay.
We are putting those activities in the funding in the $1 million projects that we implement. We at Green Economy, we are going to lead that process of mainstreaming, if you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And then using our example, we'll share with our colleagues in water, in tourism, in agriculture. Like I've already explained here, these are our colleagues, we are always working together. So because our mandate is to green the economy, is to protect the environment. We'll lead the way and then share with our colleagues so that when we sit down, we open the National Adaptation Plan. How many activities in there can Ministry of Green Economy implement using the national budget, using the projects that are sitting in our ministry? How many of those can be implemented by the Ministry of Tourism using the same approach, Ministry of Water using the same approach, Ministry of Local Government using the same approach? So the biggest lesson we have learned is going forward, we must adapt at scale, but we are going first of all to use the resources that we have within ourselves, so that even when we go to look for external support, we'll demonstrate to our partners that, look, on our own, this is how far we have gone. So we are looking for a shot in the arm in order for us to go this further distance. That is the biggest lesson. The other lesson is on alternatives to energy.
Okay.
We can't no longer rely on hydroelectricity. The Republican President has already declared this solarization program, where even government buildings have to go on solar.
Yes.
So that has to be done at scale. But beyond that, we are not shy to mention coal.
Okay.
Clean coal. There are technologies now that can give you clean coal. So that's another area that we are looking for. The third one is water harvesting. Can we do dams? Can we do irrigation? In fact, in most of these projects that we are implementing, irrigation now will take a priority.
Okay.
If you look at the Eastern Province jurisdictional project there, we've done 21 mini irrigation schemes, 5 hectares, divided into 51 families. Each family has its own drip. So it's 5 hectares. You have the overhead tanks powered by solar.
Yes.
So each family has a 0.1 hectare portion there. They can open the irrigation taps at their own convenience without disturbing the neighbors. So the projects now that we are running, which have an irrigation component, irrigation will have to be prioritized. Okay. Even where we are able to move resources to adjust the budget so that the biggest component of the funding goes into irrigation, that's what we are going to do.
All right. Yeah. P.S. Thank you so much for making time off your busy schedule to join us on Climate Check and just set the tone for the year 2025 as we looked back on the biggest challenge we ever faced as a country in a long time, the drought. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
We have come to the end of Climate Check for this week. Join me next week, same time, same channel. This program is brought to you courtesy HIVOS Southern Africa with its alliance partners on the VCA project. My name is Mwiikisa. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.